Let's talk right now about where we are with the latest madness on migration and asylum. And as always, there are plenty of stories to pick from. Let's talk about it with Steven Woolfe. He's a former MEP, of course, and now director at the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity. A very good morning to you.
Very good morning, Julia.
Thanks for joining us. Well, it's lovely weather for us here in the UK, and of course even better weather if you're trying to get across to the UK. And we've seen yet more, just yet more migrants coming across from Calais, and yet more failure by the French police to actually stop people. And what I thought was particularly extraordinary was their inability to stop a man who was on a crutch to get into a migrant dinghy.
Well, Julia, it's a wonderful day here, and whilst we're thinking about having a glass of vino or beer with our friends, the people smugglers are thinking, how do they enhance the 90 million that they've made this year along, while piling in all those scientists, doctors, engineers and titans of industry to help us with growth onto those very small boats. But what I did love was that story that we picked up. It's the man who identified as a submarine, obviously using his walking stick as an aid to skip past the French police with ease and then swim across to one of those boats. Yes, the French police showing their entente with us. Absolute joie de vivre and life with us by enabling someone who could hardly walk to get past them and come across.
Well, indeed.
It just goes to show they don't want them. They want us to have them.
Quite right. Although, again, I've always thought it's crazy the French not to act on this, because actually a lot of migrants make their way into France with the intention of coming to Britain, but they wouldn't be making their way into France and setting up camp sometimes for weeks at a time, even months at a time in northern France, if they weren't coming to us. And that, I just think they're crazy, because we know one of the reasons they don't want to stay in France, they want to come here because we're the El Dorado, because you get your house and your room and board, and let's face it, you'll never be deported, you'll get to stay. Whereas in France, you don't even get a translator to make your case.
No.
Maybe we should learn a lesson. Rather than giving all that money to the French, what is it, 800 million so far in the last few years to try and stop the boats. They're still not doing it. We're hoping for that change in the law, though, aren't we? That they will actually wade out a few yards into the sea to stop the boats. Do you think that will happen?
Well, I'm not sure it will happen. The French do love a way of just delaying things. And as I say, they have taken nearly $1 billion off us since around 2014, when we first started giving them cash for camps, as I like to call it, and cash for doing nothing, cash for camps. And I just think sometimes, we look at them, and logic does dictate that if we stop them coming in at Calais and coming to the UK, the French would have less of a problem on their own borders. Yep. But that would mean then having to go and deal with other countries like Italy and Greece. And we have lessons. We can watch what the Hungarians do. Orban recently spoke about how he's giving €1 million a day to the European Union and saying, because I'm not going to accept any of them. And so he doesn't have any terrorist attacks in that country. He doesn't have any grooming gangs in his country. And he doesn't have the level of mass migration and hotels being filled up. We look at Donald Trump, who's now looking to try and increase 1 million people deported a month. And he's stopped the borders, the mass borders. 350,000 a month used to come across. He's getting none now. So deterrent works, we just don't believe in it.
Yeah, and the thing is, we're always running to catch up with the latest tactic being used. And we closed down, well, no, we didn't close down completely, but we shut down to the mass use of the Eurotunnel and people getting onto trains or getting onto the backs of lorries. It's still going on, but nothing like the scale it was. They put up the fencing, they dealt with that eventually. Then they got onto the beaches, and so then they started this tactic or that tactic. But their tactics are always changing. They're finding new ways of circumventing the French police, whether they bring the dinghies, on the car to the beach and then people get in, or whether they sail the dinghies from elsewhere to the beach and then the people who are paying them have to swim out to get on. Whatever the rule change is, they will adapt.
They will, and we've had, as you quite rightly pointed out, they're still coming on an airplane, boat and the backs of lorries. And since 2018, the research I'll probably publish towards the end of the week will show that there's about 300,000 who've done that. But what I'm looking at now is the agreement that seems to be pushing really headlong in Europe, where they have these transit camps in France where they're going to have safe routes, where the people smugglers all across France can guide their people into these French ports and areas, ports of safety, where we will then accept lots of asylum seekers from France in return that we send back people to France. The logic is just it's mind-boggling.
And because we're one of the bigger, richer countries in Europe, although not in the EU anymore, we'll probably have to take more than we'll be able to send back.
Oh, absolutely. And QED, that's what happened
Brilliant.
before we had Brexit. That's
Brilliant.
exactly what was happening then.
I mean, it's a brilliant
So,
idea, and I'm absolutely sure that Keir Starmer will happily sign up to it. It's madness. Thing is, the main issue we've got is we need to stop people coming in because for some reason we're unable to get rid of them. It's very bizarre. I mean, Germany's been closing their borders. They've cut the number of people entering their country very, very, very significantly. But once people are here, we don't seem to get rid of them, even though our law, quite clearly, all your human rights law allows us to get rid of people who've been, for instance, I don't know, convicted of being a grooming gang member, of mass rape of young underage girls. And this has been the case with two men, Kwari Abdul Rauf and Adil Khan. They're two of Britain's worst grooming offenders. They were sentenced for their part in the Rochdale child grooming scandal and rape scandal. They, of course, weren't jailed for long enough. They were jailed in 2012, and again didn't get anything like as much time as they should have done. But the idea is they're supposed to be deported to Afghanistan, to Pakistan. Turns out, though, they tore up their passports. They have renounced their Pakistani nationality or dual nationality, so we can't make them stateless. We can't get rid of them. And the Pakistani authorities are going, well, what can we do? So we're stuck with these people. I mean, this is mind-blowing.
Oh, it is. And this puts into a kind of real context of what's happening in the United States. You should remember with Colombia, it said, we're not going to accept anyone back, Mr. Trump. You can go and swing from a tree. And he turned around and said, OK, you're not allowing anyone to come into the country from Colombia. I've stopped all visas immediately. And I'm going to send anyone back from the universities to do so as well.
Yeah.
And what we've got with deals such as Pakistan is we fund them. We do donate money to them. And the Foreign Office will squeal. They'll say, if we don't fund these people, they'll start running off to China and they'll become their best mates. And that's where it all gets mixed up. What's more important is being able to deport those criminals who are people not only the products of people smugglers, but also the products of being grooming gang evil individuals. We shouldn't want them in this country at all. And we should do whatever we can and ignore the Foreign Office and say, sorry. Sorry, language there.
Happy with that.
But we should turn around and say to them, get back to Pakistan. And Pakistan, if you don't like it, we're not going to give you any funding. And we're not going to support you anyway.
And we're also not going to allow a single visa. I mean, which frankly, Absolutely. I think is one of the things I'd want to do anyway. I want to come on to that, but I want to bring another case as well, because I saw this yesterday and it absolutely blew my mind. An asylum seeker from Afghanistan, so another economic migrant from Afghanistan. He entered the UK illegally in 2021, and in October 2023, he just basically approached a 15-year-old girl in Falkirk town centre, made some lewd remarks and then dragged her behind a pub and raped her. He's been convicted of that crime and he was jailed for 9 years. So 12-year extended sentence. Of course, he won't serve anything like that. Of course he won't. I mean, it's just rape of a child. But the most extraordinary thing was the defence that was given, which was 9 years in custody followed by 3 years on licence, apparently. And he'll go on the sex offenders register and at the end of his sentence, he should be deported. But we know he won't be deported. But part of the defence given was by Defence Counsel Janice Green. She told the court there were language difficulties. So when she was saying, I'm only 15, apparently, he wasn't quite sure it was rape. But she said there were also a cultural barrier between this man, Sadiq Nigzad, his home country, where child marriage was common. And she said, I'm not suggesting that means he reasonably believed she was consenting, but that there's a reason why he could have misunderstood. Now, she, like many women who were attacked, and girls who were attacked, basically went silent and dazed, because a lot of women know they don't fight back, they don't shout, they are so shocked by what's happening to them, and the urge to stay alive is more important than anything else at that point. This is a very common response. But the idea that he thought, because he was from Afghanistan, that a girl could just be approached and grabbed and taken behind a pub and raped, that's a cultural difference that apparently needed to be taken into account by the court. That's disgusting and appalling, isn't it?
Well, we're quite rightly disgusted. We're quite rightly horrified by it. And in a way, I don't blame the barrister for this, for having to put that case.
You're a barrister yourself, aren't you?
Yeah. So if your client says that's his defence and that's what he understands, then you have to put that forward. And so I'm sure that she felt disgusted by actually having to say it. I know many barristers have done so. Not myself, thankfully. But in those circumstances, there's a number of things from this, Julia, isn't it? If we're saying that is the cultural difference and that's what they understand, how can those on the left argue that their culture is compatible with ours?
Yeah, this is the conversation we had yesterday with a former Labour Party representative. And this is the thing, when two cultures, A, they're not the same, B, they're not morally of equal value, and C, when they do clash, pick a side, and I pick our values. And this is the thing, something you talked about for many years, and you do this great work at the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, that we were told for years the lie that mass immigration was bringing us untold economic benefits. Clearly hasn't. You only have to look at productivity, you only have to look at the state of our finances and the like. Clearly not. And loads of statistics now making it really clear that is not the case for the vast majority of people who come to this country. We were told that, multiculturalism and diversity is our strength. Again, no evidence for this whatsoever. I'm getting to the point, and I think the British people are getting to the point, we've discussed it a bit earlier with Philip Ingram, my guest in the studio, that people are hitting a breaking point now, not just with the grooming gangs, not just with, people coming legally here, like Axel Rudiger-Barner's parents and others, that we are importing a lot of people from cultures, from places war-torn or poverty-stricken places we just don't want here. And I think a lot of people are getting to the point when we need to move into Trumpian territory in terms of, maybe there are some countries where we don't want anyone to come from. Where are you on that?
Well, I think for some time I've been saying that there are the top 9 countries that lead to the largest number of people coming as asylum claims legally, which is Afghanistan, Somalia, Iran and Iraq. And I'm of the view that we no longer should be allowing any visas to come in at all. I know, again, we look at the Foreign Office and the Treasury, we'll balk at that. We say we want to have their university students in, or we want to have the elites kids being taught at Sandhurst so that we have good friends at that. But at the end of the day, I think we should be adopting a view that now we've not only had so many from those countries that we've quite clearly seen here as a case of cultural difference that doesn't work, but also the Casey report, finally, or rather the Casey review, has indicated that we've got 25% of those who are committing these crimes were illegal migrants and asylum seekers.
Yeah.
That there was a destruction of our own culture by ignoring criminality because we didn't want to offend. We also didn't have proper research, the sort of numbers that we've been saying are there. And all of that is a destruction of our own nation's cultural kind of history and our ability to be who we are because we want to accept. And the view is, in my view, for a long time, we've got to slow down, if not stop immigration from certain countries so that we can catch up, so that we can rebalance, so that we can understand, integrate where we can,
educate
those that come.
Educate. And if you don't want to be educated and change your views, then bye-bye. Steven Woolfe, always good to talk to you. Thank you very much. Brief word from Philip Ingram, listening to all of that.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great if we had some way of, as people come into this country illegally, they're taken out immediately and then processed overseas, like Rwanda. Now, if Keir Starmer's, and he's proved that he can do U-turns, he should do a U-turn in that and make it a much better programme. So instead of the few hundred that the
call
Tories
it something else. We'll pretend not to notice. I had no faith that the Tories were going to do it. I have no faith whatsoever Labour are going to do it. They haven't got their hearts in it at all. I even wonder if we get reform at the next election, whether they would even though they would absolutely have their, have the will to do it, whether they would even be able to do it. I think the battles against the blob and the lawyers is so great. We need such a fundamental change to how our country is run to get all that done.